You're listening to the Digital Deep Dive, where we tackle the newest trends, strategies, and pain points shaping growth across the digital landscape. From Amazon and D2C to international expansion, join our host and e-commerce leaders across multiple industries for in-depth discussions on how to maximize your brands in the digital arena. Now, here's your host, Aaron Conant.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Digital Deep Dive podcast. I'm your host here, Aaron Conant, and we're going to have a great conversation today around fulfillment and everything that goes into fulfillment across the digital landscape and how much it's changed, kind of the requirements that have popped up that have been driven by customer demands, but also marketplace demands, and how those have changed, and also the growth opportunities that are out there. We want to kind of tackle a bunch of different stuff: distributed logistics, micro fulfillment, and just the impact that we're seeing brands who are enabling these functionalities to just grow. We got a great friend over at Davinci Micro Fulfillment, Corey Apirian, agreed to jump on the line today and just have a really candid discussion. So, as we kick this off, Corey, I'd love to hear, your background as a whole and a little bit about Davinci and how you got there, and then we can kind of jump into the conversation. Sound good?
Sounds great. Thanks for having me as always. Davinci Micro Fulfillment manages a MFC Micro Fulfillment Center as a service where we aggregate front-end merchandising network optimization in our physical location network to provide strategy and execution to brands who need help shipping direct to consumer through their 1P marketplace and D2C channels. Consumers' buying habits have evolved. Depending on the need, the category, the channel you're serving, customers want products fast and same day, 1 day, 2 day. And you need precision and automation in order to effectively manage that throughput. And forward deployed inventory is a new concept that allows you to enable speed, efficiency, and a chance at profitability. And what Davinci does is we excel in connecting all of those components through our ecosystem. And it's really birthed as a result of 20 years deep in the experience in the e-commerce fulfillment industry. I personally have been drop shipping for every major retailer, including Amazon, since 2004, and have launched well over 50 different subcategories through individual online and brick-and-mortar channels. And what we have seen is the pain points and opportunities have evolved over the past 20 years.
Yeah, what's really interesting is, Corey, you and I were talking a little bit. I was like, hey, this kind of dates back to where a lot of the pain points were to the beginning of the pandemic, where Amazon stopped shipping and then brands were trying to figure out, wait, I still have inventory in my warehouse. How do I get it to customers? And a lot of them were bumping heads around individual pick, pack, ship and ERP system updates to be able to do it. You have your back end, like how do you store it differently in a virtual warehouses so it doesn't get picked and shipped out to a normal retailer? And you were kind of like, whoa. Actually, it was before that it got kicked off. Would love to hear, your thoughts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you could date it back to Amazon Prime getting kicked off. You probably could even make the argument of the JCPenney X book when it was catalog shipping, in the 70s and 80s in department store. Because that mimicked a lot about what e-commerce fulfillment has evolved from. But Amazon Prime created a need where customers were paying for 2-day deliveries across the US. I think when I was one of the first Prime members back in 2004, 2005, when, around the time it got created, it was like $25 for a Prime. I think my credit card got charged for like over $150 now. So what we're opting into for speed as consumers is definitely kind of crazy. And you look at all these other things that have started and stopped in terms of Shop Runner, if you remember that, where people tried to have like an Amazon-esque experience. But what Amazon did, and a lot of their senior leaders were obviously ex-Walmart supply chain leaders, that when they were first building the infrastructure of their business, was to be able to mimic these brick and mortar feelings for brands so that they can ship bulk into these FCs around the country to enable their fulfillment, while then slowly adopting the Amazon marketplace and dropship. But brands back then, and still some of them do it today, were terrified of a single piece unit out of their system and couldn't even do it. I mean, their ERPs were these really rigid AS400 systems or SAP and Oracle, back then were just first really starting to come out and would take 2 years for an integration and shut an entire company down for that same time frame. So, how things have evolved is definitely interesting when you look at EDI and open source APIs, structures, and RESTful APIs. And, the technology has evolved so that all this is enabled today. But when you go back and look at the buying habit and how that's changed, I mean, it's hard to say that Amazon created the buying habit other than they really catered to it. And as technology grew, they made stuff available and realized that people wanted it fast.
Yeah, do you think that then it's just that brands kind of punted until the pandemic, right? They kept kicking it down the road. I mean, as long as there's other people there to do that for them, right? Because I do agree with you. Like, I mean, when I was on the brand side, updating SAP to enable individual pick, pack, ship, it was, months and months and months. And then that was the only, the starting point for a cascading number of problems that needed to be solved. And not to mention, I don't know, 18 inches worth of, QA assurance through the IT department signed off that nothing would happen to the rest of the company as we implemented these changes on the ordering system as a whole. But it's just interesting, like how many companies punted and now there's like a mass scramble. It's one of the most common things that I'm, dealing with today. I just hung up with a brand who's struggling with like, how do I get my product? Amazon, I've got it figured out. It's either FBA or, I'm on the vendor side.
I would say even that when you look at FBA and the vendor side, that puts even more tax on an organization, and like having that agility built in for fulfillment and bulk strategies is really what enables brands to really grow and have profitability while like not putting all of their eggs into one basket. I think that's the problem that you were alluding to earlier on the non-essential news, is that when the world stopped and brick and mortar shut down and everyone was shipping bulk into Amazon, if you were in that non-essential business, you had zero avenue of business.
So what does that balance look like? I mean, you're dealing with a ton of brands today. Like, are you an advocate for 1P versus 3P? Are you backing up on both sides? How should people be optimizing their fulfillment network? And I want to talk about Amazon, but I also want to talk about like how that affects the strategy for, if you are on eBay, if you're on Walmart, if you're on Nordstrom, if, Target, all the other marketplaces that are out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I come from a history of working with enterprise brands. And as a result of that, I've seen firsthand the power of 1P. And I've also been in this industry for a really long time and watched all marketplaces get created. And a lot of them got created looking at Amazon and just saying, we want that too, a la a Best Buy, a Home Depot, a Walmart, a Target, right? I think to answer the first question of when do you fulfill and when do you go bulk, it's a very seasonal, regional, and category driven conversation that has to do with the customer experience and profitability. And then you kind of work backwards, in my opinion. And the supply chain is a big component of that. If you can only get inventory into LA because Port of Long Beach was holding all your containers and you don't have time because it's peak season to get it across the US. And I could see a real good argument for getting inventory into bulk Amazon FCs and FBA and letting them handle a lot of the distributed logistics. If you can plan your supply chain and your domestic intralogistics the right way and get inventory forward deployed closer to consumers, then things open up for you. You start to get control. You start to have agility. You start to get proximity, not in just physical location to the end consumer, but also the data of what consumers are buying and where and when, and measuring those halo effects in a Amazon and mentality, not an Amazon verse mentality, to answer your second question. So when you're looking at balance across your ecosystem, when you have products in brick and mortar and you're exposing the right items on a modular that has a certain fit to it, that essentially has been the same size and cubic foot and price point on that modular for the past 20 or 30 years, you want to use e-commerce to support information, halo effect, test and learn, shopping cart buying analysis in terms of like shampoo and conditioner, bundles, things like that, that help us sort your product and drive in store and use in store to drive online. When you look at Amazon, you could fall into the trap very easily of putting all of your eggs into Amazon. Yeah, they'll take everything. I'm drop shipping. Why not build it all? Well, there's a reverberation around the industry, right? In the marketplace when you do that. So when you use Amazon the way that it's meant to be for selling, marketing, halo effects, consumer messaging, all of those things, I think you start to unlock all these different tools in a brand's arsenal. And I think, in my opinion, to go back to your 1P versus 3P conversation, I think brands have all the control today. I think they're the ones who hold the inventory. They're the ones who work so hard on their brand. I don't believe in just a D2C mentality, because when you look at the Caspers and the Pelotons of the world, and obviously this is an extreme example, like you're only selling D2C in that channel, and you can't grow after you've hit a certain point of your life cycle. You can't grow any further. And it's very taxing on the organization to have everything in that one bucket. So when you can expose yourself onto Amazon, D2C, retail.com, the right marketplaces with the right assortments placed around the country at the right time, that's where you can really find that profitability and top line kind of be very harmonized together. And that's really what Davinci provides, is the tools to be the solution to solve those problems in a profitable and cost-effective and customer experience-driven manner.
It's interesting and so complicated at the same time, because I think because, that decision, should we be 1P or 3P, everybody wants it to be a really quick exercise, right? They want to go to the Amazon FBA calculator, type in, what their ASIN is, the wholesale price, and just have it kicked out, and then kind of make this really oversimplified decision on, oh, look, I can make more money 1P, or I can make more money 3P. But kind of what you were walking through there is how complicated that discussion is, because I've had brands go both ways. Say, hey, I thought I was going to make a bunch more money and I actually lost. And I have brands saying, hey, I thought I was going to break even. I'm making a ton more money. And I'm always asking them, what'd you tie it back to? They're like, well, we don't know. But the dynamics, it's like, yeah, I'm just thinking, like, I don't know how many people would want to just knock on your door and pick your brain for an hour on, doing a deep dive on what's the most profitable, next month as well as next year, based on, like you were saying, supply chain. What's port of entry? Where's it coming in from? What's your balance? What's your focus? How many marketplaces are you on? Are you looking for product assortment, or are you looking to expand, product line, or shrink it down? It's just more complicated than the FBA calculator, I guess, is what I'm trying to get across.
No, you're 100% right. And I think micro fulfillment in general brings customers closer to brands, again, into that data sense, because you're in this hyper local area and you get to see what's moving in this real-time POS format. And I look at that as something really exciting, because, again, it's about having agility. So if you could be agile and you're aligned to be in vendor or seller central, and you have direct fulfillment and 1P, if you have FBA, merchant filled, seller filled, prime, all the kind of components kind of working together. If you're selling in store at Target and then you have Target.com backed up with a different set of assortments, you can start pulling levers at different areas based on market conditions, based on profitability, based on certain drive times. I mean, I had a brand that found 3,000 items in their warehouse, 3,000 units of a Halloween candy a week before Halloween last year. And we turned it on Amazon in their 1P direct fulfillment account, got it to their closest facility that was closest to one of our MFCs. And within days, we blew out every unit and got it into customers' hands in 1 to 2 days, it was amazing. I mean, it went so fast. It doesn't always work like that. But we gave them the agility to be able to have the tools to execute on those conversations, which was not in their toolbox prior.
Yeah, which is what everybody needs at the end of the day, is as many options. So we talk about this quite a bit, testing and learning. And a lot of times people think testing and learning around advertising and what's going to get me a great, return on ad spend. How do I look at, different content? And I think testing and learning across the board is giving yourself the ability to be able to test and learn around, like you're saying, different ways to move product that you have internally, different packaging sizes, different combo packs, different marketplaces, right? What are you going to sell? How are you going to launch new items?
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's funny with the marketing thing. I had a brand in my office last week who told me that it's actually less expensive for them right now to advertise on television than it is on Amazon with certain AMS spends and some of the categories that they're playing in, which is crazy if you think about it, right? I mean, there's so much traffic on digital advertising. So you have to be careful now on what you're spending on Amazon, because even when you're launching a new item, there's so much data around the benefit to launching a new item and driving AMS and other avenues of online digital advertising that brands are looking to that as the key, but there's not as greater of an ROI immediately. So you have to balance profitability with this whole conversation. But you really have to balance your whole ecosystem. And I think the most exciting thing, again, that Davinci does is that we come from a logistics, technology, and merchandising background. And that's why we aggregate all of those things. But it's really the data science behind it all that drives the entire conversation. It's the interoperation of those merchandising, network optimization, and MFC physical location networks that allow you to make these decisions and create that agility, but to be really executing at a really high level now, but really for also tomorrow's retail. And I think that's the thing that brands really need to understand is that, again, they're the ones in control. They're the ones asked to do the heavy lifting. If they do it right and put themselves in a position to succeed, they could pivot, they could be nimble, and they can measure all these things in a real-time format and aggregate all of these elements of data into profitable decision-making, sustainability, right? Driving down packaging costs, engineering the right product, lowering down on returns because product's landing safely because it's not traveling from Miami to Seattle in the most extreme example, and so on and so forth.
What is the next level of retail and digital retail look like? What should brands be prepping for right now? I think one of the key things that you just brought up was, package design, I think is huge. I think that's a great one, right? Everybody's got the package engineers on the back end, but they're, for the past, up until 2 years ago, they're designing for a store shelf, right? Is the package going to sit on a 6-inch high shelf? Is it going to have the right PDP on the front? Is it going to stand out? And now there's a complete shift. But what other things are out there that people need to be prepping for that you see popping up?
It depends on the category and the channel again. I mean, if you're operating in a quick commerce mentality and you're having 30 to 1 hour deliveries, right? We know the 15-minute deliveries don't work right now. And, it's just not profitable for those rapid grocers. So if you're operating in a 30 to 1 hour, 2 hour delivery, element of buy online, pick up in store, buy online, pick up anywhere, an Amazon locker, you get to introduce all these sustainable packaging products. There's some really cool stuff out there for people like Packet, who've developed some really eco-friendly items that can hold products frozen and chilled for, over 10 to 15 hours. And those are some really great things that people, there's a lot of really smart people in the industry right now that are solving a lot of problems. When you're looking at small parcel, and you talk about assortment planning and you're looking at, product being differentiated from in-store elements, then, you can't just manufacture the same item in a ships and own container packaging for Amazon that you would put into Target, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's, et cetera. So, I mean, some of it you can because it's got the velocity. Some of it you can't because, it creates some additional agility when you can ship bulk from overseas or manufacture domestically and get it and pair it and test and learn. But again, it's going back to that data. But I think that the important thing here is that there is going to be a definite shift in sustainability elements in packaging, but cost right now is going to continue to be the biggest driver. But you see a lot of federal regulations in California. You can't use plastic bubble. You have to use paper products or some eco-friendly. Obviously, nobody's using styrofoam peanuts anymore, but it's an evolution. So over time, I think you're going to see more drives towards sustainability, but cost is a huge implication. But the only way you can mitigate a lot of that risk in terms of like the safety of the product being delivered the right way is through some sort of micro fulfillment where you're in these hyper local areas and you're able to get product to consumers really safely.
What are you the most excited about, in where you sit in the fulfillment space, right? Is it the speed? Is it the rapid growth? Is it robotics? Is it what gets you excited?
Yeah, no, there's three things. The first thing that gets me super excited is I love working with brands and solving problems and working across functional divisions and merging them together to create something that truly interoperates together. So to me, that's what Davinci is. That's what we do. That's what gets me excited. And I wake up every day getting to touch all these components, because that's the definition of supply chain management, which I love. Everybody that knows me knows that I love that. And point of origin to point of consumption and everything in between. It's really a special time in this industry right now where people are truly understanding the value of supply chain. And it's taken a while to get there. But when you look at every major company across the world, really for the past 30, 40 years, supply chain management has really been a core theme in most of those organizations. The next thing I would say is probably the automation, the technology and the automation. What we're seeing today is unprecedented, and it's going to continue to grow. Amazon and Walmart just both recently announced that they're opening up thousands of fully automated local facilities. Davinci, we've been working on this since we've been born. I feel like we're ahead of the game right now, and we're probably a few years ahead of anyone else opening up automated micro fulfillment centers. But we have 4 automation partners that we've partnered with in order to accomplish this, all solving a different need inside of a facility. And to me, that's really exciting, getting to work with these really smart people, these new developing and emerging technologies, and to be on the forefront of bringing that to brands who get to create a really great customer experience against a category and channel agnostic environment. I love that. And then the third thing is the data science behind it all. To me, that's equally as exciting, because you get to create this information almost on a real-time basis and get to see things that nobody else really can see. And to me, that just creates efficiencies and keeps creating these flywheels that everybody loves and talks about. But, you could really fuel it with this rifle approach accuracy. And we're not the only one doing that. There's certainly dozens of great organizations today that have been able to accomplish a lot through data science. And it's just, I think we're just scratching the surface.
No, I agree. The technology and how much it's ramped, and the AI that's on the back end that's actually seemed to function more like AI has empowered a lot of new, more rapid developments that I think at this point in time, if you're not enabling them, if you're not adding the technology on the back end, or if you're not finding partners who are, you're kind of gambling at this point in time, because, you may have been jogging while everybody was walking, but now everybody's starting to run. And, even the leaders, it's interesting to follow people over and over again and just see the ones that move and adapt the fastest, are going to keep winning. Is there one key thing that you run into with brands? That key piece of advice? Is it expand assortment? Would love to hear your kind of thoughts there as well. You're just setting such an interesting spot, this fulfillment space that everybody's trying to figure out. So would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I hear over and over again. Davinci is really unique. So I think our model is very purposefully built that solve a lot of problems, from our offering, our technology, our services, our physical location network, our automated MFCs, but also our pricing model. And I think people are so used to either doing it themselves, not fulfilling it all, not having strategies for e-commerce that are fully developed, because that's something that's pretty critical, right? E-commerce is not that old, There's not a lot of experts in the industry that have been doing this for 20 plus years like we have. There's a lot of really smart people that are starting to dig into it. And there are equally as many people that really get it and have really done some amazing things across digital advertising, automation, network optimization, integrations, systems, SaaS tools. The list goes on and on and on, right? However, what I think is so interesting is that there's still so many people that are stuck in this very regional, storage-driven fulfillment model that's still so similar to a brick-and-mortar fill up a modular muscle. And that's just not what e-commerce fulfillment is, and that's not how it's going to be successful. And a unit economics from a profitability perspective, as well as the strategy and philosophy as an organization, it's not another channel. It's not another customer. It's an extension of a brand. I think, it amazes me sometimes when brands don't treat it like that today, or executive leadership teams just don't invest the right time and money into those, pieces of the conversation internally and invest in the right areas. And to me, I think that's a little bit of a miss. I think, when you look at what makes e-commerce so special and so different, you're not walking into a traditional physical store location, professional buyer like office and selling them, this widget and putting it on their desk and demoing it. I mean, you might be doing that in some e-commerce, vendor manager meetings. However, that's not what you're doing. Like how you sell is through operations, technology, marketing, right? So you need to hire a different type of body. And like when I see a lot of these enterprise brands just still doing the same thing over and over again, like the definition of insanity. But it's an evolution. And I think people are starting to get it now. I think when the non-essential news happened, like everybody kind of went crazy. And then everyone got vaccinated and people started shopping in stores a little bit. And you saw leaders say, oh, we're back to normal again.
Yeah.
And then it went crazy again, So it's interesting to see how it's going to keep going. I think the ones like you said before that are going to embrace this and invest in the right areas needed, those are the ones that are going to be running and sprinting right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think you touched on it. The skill set, outside of digital, right? Traditional brick and mortar, all the effort went into, a cut in on a shelf, right? And getting shelf space and all that effort. But once it was on there was just a little bit of marketing to keep it going, but you were on shelf. And then, you had to resell it the next time. You didn't want to lose your shelf space. In the digital space, there's unlimited shelf, right? That's the selling is the easiest thing ever, right? You just literally fill out a sheet and upload it.
Right.
It's a completely different skill set on the back end, starting with number one, do you have product and can you get it to the end consumer? Okay. Building from there, right? Building from there, we can work on content and then we can do paid media to drive to the content that we know we have inventory for and we know we can get the end consumer. That's a completely different skill set and it requires a completely different set of tools to help you get there. And
what's interesting about that though, is that history repeats itself. So if you're a strong merchant and you understand supply chain and operations and you're open to the new nuances of where this industry has begun to go and is going and will be going to, then you could be really dangerous in those seats with that tool set. Because how you sell an item from, your traditional 4 Ps that we learned in college, to me, you still have the 4 Ps, but it's just how you apply them is very different.
Yeah. Love it. Well, Corey, thanks so much for your time today. Thanks for being such a great supporter of the network and so many of the brands in it. How do people get a hold of you as we kind of wrap up this episode here? Is there a best way? Is it email address? Is it, if they want to check out more of what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to our website, Davinci Micro Fulfillment or DavinciMFC.com, fill out the contact us form, or you could email me at CoreyA, COREYA at DavinciMFC.com. Myself and anyone on my team are more than happy to spend time helping any way we can. We love helping brands. That's what we do.
Awesome. And you guys are crushing it for a ton of the brands in the network. So really value you and all the support and the friendship, Corey. And with that, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us for this episode of the Digital Deep Dive Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Conant. Thanks again. Just always love continuing this digital journey together. With that, we're going to wrap this one up. Everybody, take care now. Thanks, Corey.
Bye.